Why I left Christianity for atheism. When people ask me why I left Christianity, the answer isn't simple, but it is honest. It started when I began seriously studying the Bible, not just reading it devotionally, but really digging into what scholars, historians, and theologians had to say. And what I found shook me. First, it became clear to me that Jesus didn't actually preach Christianity. He didn't come to start a church. In fact, apart from one mention in one gospel, Jesus never even uses the word. The earliest gospels, Mark being the oldest, don't show him founding a religion. He preached about God. He talked about repentance, sincerity, love of neighbor, and a deeper spiritual renewal within Judaism. If anything, Jesus was a Jewish reformer, not the founder of a new religion. He didn't preach the Trinity. He didn't teach the Incarnation. He never claimed to be God in the way many Christians today claim he did. These ideas came later. When I looked at the historical context, I saw that the Gospel of John, the last gospel written, is the only one that has Jesus saying things like, "I am the light of the world," or "Before Abraham was, I am." Those phrases don't appear in the earlier Gospels, not once. That begged the question, if Jesus really said these divine, groundbreaking things, why did the earlier sources leave them out? I realized that the Jesus of history and the Christ of faith were not the same person. The historical Jesus was a man, a prophet maybe, but not divine. That conclusion alone started to unravel my beliefs. And then there was the doctrine of the Trinity. It never made sense to me. I was always told it's a mystery, but that's not an answer. How can three be one and one be three, with each being fully God but not three gods? It was explained with Greek philosophical terms like homoousios, same substance, but it still didn't add up. Worse, it wasn't even biblical. The only explicit Trinitarian verse in the Bible, 1 John 5:7, turns out to be a later addition, a Hamasit Vani. And yet it was used for centuries as a core proof of Christian doctrine. Then came the atonement. I was told Jesus died for my sins, that God sacrificed his son, or himself, depending on how you spin it, so that I could be forgiven. But this raised even more troubling questions. Why does an all-powerful God need a blood sacrifice to forgive? Isn't that just divine human sacrifice? If Jesus was God, then how did God die? And if he didn't really die, then was it even a sacrifice? It started to sound like mythology, not reality. And more importantly, it didn't feel just. The idea that I was born deserving punishment and that someone else had to suffer in my place, that's not morality. That's a scapegoat system. But perhaps the biggest crack in the wall was suffering. Christianity teaches that God is all-loving and all-powerful. But then why is the world so full of needless pain? Earthquakes, childhood cancer, genocides. I watched bishops, even the Archbishop of Canterbury, wrestle with these questions and come up empty. They offered platitudes, not answers. So I began looking outside Christianity for clarity. And I found that when I stopped trying to fit everything into a theological box, when I allowed myself to question it all, atheism started making more sense. I didn't become an atheist because I wanted to sin or because I was angry. I became an atheist because I wanted to be honest. The evidence didn't support the core doctrines of Christianity. The Gospels are anonymous, written decades after the events. They contradict each other. Stories were added or altered. And the early church made decisions based on political power as much as truth. If God was trying to reveal a clear message, why is the Bible so unclear, so full of interpolations and contradictions? People ask, but don't you still believe in some of it? And yes, I think Christianity gets a lot right: ethics, compassion, justice. But those values aren't exclusive to religion. You can be moral without belief in God. In fact, you can be moral without needing the fear of hell or the promise of heaven. Some say, well, Christianity brings people peace, and that's true for many. But so does meditation, therapy, or simply believing you're loved. Peace doesn't mean truth. And that's what I was after, truth. So no, I don't think Christianity is entirely false, but the parts that make it uniquely Christian, the Trinity, the Incarnation, the Atonement, don't hold up to scrutiny. I didn't want to keep living in cognitive dissonance, pretending I believed things I didn't, or explaining away doubts with mystery. So I let go, and honestly, I've found more clarity, more honesty, and a deeper sense of responsibility for my life, because I know this life is all I've got. That's why I left Christianity.